There's only one place to start this lunchtime, and that's the inter-Korean talks at the border, the first high-level dialogue between the South and North in 2 years. There is a renewed sense of optimism that the two sides can start 2018 as they mean to go on. We have our Ji Myung-gil standing by at the Office for South-North Dialogue in Seoul, where all the details related to the meeting are being gathered. So, Myung-gil, these talks started around 2 hours ago now. Please fill us in on the latest.
Hello, Mark. I'm here at the Unification Ministry's Special Office for Inter-Korean Dialogue, which was set up in 1971. And this is where all the important information will be coming in throughout the day. Now, the talks are still ongoing at the House of Peace at the southern side of Panmunjom. We don't know if the talks will finish today or go on for 2 to 3 more days. Now, the North Korean delegation crossed the military demarcation line at 9:30 a.m. to the southern side, and South Korea's Unification Minister left this building to head for the DMZ in the early morning hours. Now let's take a listen to what both chief negotiators had to say at the opening of the talks.
As lots of countries, including athletes from North Korea, will participate in the Pyeongchang 2018 Winter Olympics and Paralympics, it will be a successful festival for peace.
I've come here with the mindset of sincerely and diligently committing to the high-level talks. The talks should have fruitful results as a form of a New Year's present to all people, including Koreans.
The South Korean delegation is led by Unification Minister Jong-Un, and the North Korean delegation is led by Lee Sun-kwon, the chairman of North Korea's committee dealing with inter-Korean affairs with 5 members on both sides. The breakthrough call between Seoul and Pyongyang came last week after North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's New Year's address and the reopening of a communication hotline at Panmunjom. The government hopes improved inter-Korean relations will pave the way toward resolving the North nuclear issue and for broader talks between Pyongyang and Washington. President Moon Jae-in called for the international community's support in the talks. The United States said they support the talks 100%, and China welcomed the talks.
Well, Wolf, just minutes ago, the South Korean delegation entered the demilitarized zone, and minutes from now, we're expecting a dramatic scene, something we haven't seen here on the Korean Peninsula in more than 2 years. The North Korean delegation is expected to walk over the military demarcation line that separates the North and the South. This is the same line that a North Korean soldier ran across back in November when he was defecting and was shot 5 times. But this time, these officials will be walking into Peace House, where they will sit down for these talks centering around the Panmunjom Winter Olympics and perhaps on other issues, inter-Korean relations, military tensions, and whatnot. We know that special hotlines have been installed in Peace House so that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and South Korean President Moon Jae-in can actually listen in real time to the discussions and make phone calls to the delegations. They can really intervene at any moment with last-minute instructions. They're going to be sorting out details for getting North Korean athletes to participate in the Olympics. And as of right now, Kim Jong-un really hasn't had to give up anything, but South Korea and the United States certainly are giving up quite a bit. South Korea has agreed to cover all costs for the North Korean Olympians. There's even been an offer of sending in a cruise ship to house those athletes separately. And the military drills that were scheduled to kick off during the Olympics have been delayed, at least for now. Wolf?
The United States, China, and Japan have all expressed their support for the inter-Korean talks. But both the U.S. and Japan have also stressed the importance of maintaining pressure on North Korea. Park Ji-won tells us more.
The U.S. welcomed and supported the inter-Korean talks, saying the first high-level talks in more than 2 years are the result of the Trump administration's North Korea policy of strongly pressuring the regime. U.S. Vice President Mike Pence said during a radio interview on Monday that the progress is a direct result of the clear and unambiguous leadership of President Trump, and that the administration aims to continue the policy until the North abandons its nuclear program. U.S. President Trump also expressed support for the talks, saying that the two Koreas discussing the topic of the upcoming Winter Olympics is a big start. Speaking to reporters at the Camp David presidential retreat on Saturday, the U.S. president said the talks could lead to an easing of tensions. Trump also expressed a willingness to talk with North Korean leader Kim Jong-Un over the phone, but not without preconditions. China, which has so far emphasized dialogue and more engagement with the North, also welcomes the talks. China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson said Monday during a regular press conference that China expects the two Koreas could ease tensions and strengthen mutual trust through joint efforts. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe also expressed support for the talks and the North cooperative stance on the Pyeongchang 2018 Winter Olympics. But he added that the international community, particularly China and Russia, needs to follow UN resolutions and continue with UN sanctions to pressure the North.
Well, that's good to hear, Myung-kil. And the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics is more than likely to top the agenda. That is the main purpose for the meeting, after all. But many people hope the two sides can also work through their differences on a number of other pressing issues.
That's right, Mark. North Korea's participation in the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics will be the focal point in the talks. But there are hopes that maybe the two Koreas could also talk about other issues, such as the reunion of separate families during the Korean War in the 1950s and even the possibility of reopening the Kaesong Industrial Complex. Now, the two sides will have a lot of issues to talk about because they haven't met for 2 years, the last being in December 2015. Now, concerning the Olympics, the biggest issue will be how many North Korean athletes could attend the Games and how they physically get to Pyeongchang. The organizing committee for the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics has said that they have been preparing for the possibility of North Korea attending the Games. So even after today's meeting, talks will likely continue at the working level to craft detailed schedules. In July last year, Seoul proposed holding military talks on easing border tensions and a Red Cross meeting to discuss reunions of divided families. But North Korea has not responded to that proposal.
We begin on the Korean Peninsula, where highly anticipated talks between South and North Korea have begun. It's the first such talks in over 2 years. They come after a time of heightened tensions and saber rattling over Pyongyang's nuclear and missile programs. We're now joined by NHK World's Kim Chan-ju in Seoul. So Chan-ju, what are you hearing about the talks?
The talks began at 10 a.m. as scheduled. South Korean media says the two sides have finished opening addresses and are now in discussions. Before the talks, the leader of the North Korean delegation said to the reporters it will go well. The main topic is the North's participation in the upcoming Pyeongchang Olympic Games, which are just a month away. The North has shown signs it's ready to send a pair of figure skaters to the Olympics. North Korea's representative at the International Olympic Committee called the Pyeongchang Games a sporting event for the people of Korea.
The main topic of discussion at the first high-level inter-Korean meeting is, of course, the 2018 Pyeongchang Olympics. The key agendas most likely to be discussed are how the North Korean athletes would make their way into South Korea, as well as whether the squads from South and North Korea would enter together at the opening and closing ceremonies. The general perception among pundits is that these issues have fairly straightforward answers. What's drawing more attention is the other topics that could come up at the table, including inter-Korean family reunions or an easing of military tensions.
The talks will mainly focus on the Pyeongchang Olympics. Inter-Korean family reunions will also likely be on the table, but the other agendas will more likely be brought up later on.
These other agendas include South Korea and the U.S. putting an end to their joint military drills, a long-standing demand of the North, as well as resuming tours to Mount Kumgang and reopening the Kaesong Industrial Complex. Experts say, however, that it would be a stretch for the two sides to discuss all of those things at their first meeting, and that just finalizing procedures for the Olympics would be enough to make the talks successful.
The significance of Tuesday's talks is in improving inter-Korean relations, so using the discussion of the Pyeongchang Olympics as momentum for additional negotiations is more realistic, and it's really the key task.
Meanwhile, with U.S. President Donald Trump expressing his support for inter-Korean dialogue, the expert added that however slim the chance may be, it could be possible to bring the U.S. and North Korea together for discussion if under the neutral agenda of, quote, a peaceful solution to the nuclear issue on the Korean Peninsula.
This comes after leader Kim Jong-Un mentioned the possibility in his New Year's address. Both sides are also expected to talk about diffusing military tensions. The South wants to talk about the resumption of reunions for families separated by the Korean War.
But North Korea is known for being unpredictable. What do we think it wants to get from these talks?
Well, some think Pyongyang may call for the South to halt its annual joint military drills with the U.S. Those drills are being delayed while the Olympics are on. Some analysts feel this is the North's attempt to drive a wedge between Seoul and Washington. And then there could also be something unexpected. Regardless, the talks are seen as historic, especially if they end with North Korea's participation in the Olympics. Back in 1987, a year before the South held the first Olympics on the Korean peninsula in Seoul, the North blew up a South Korean airliner, killing over 100 people on board. I will keep you updated with more later.